When I first met Jennifer, I immediately knew she was the love of my life. Her dazzling smile and sparkling green eyes captivated me from the very first sight. We met at a marketing conference where I was representing my company. Jennifer worked in the medical field and came to the event to learn about new ways to promote her clinic services. We started talking during the coffee break and chatted all day, forgetting about the conference. From that moment on, we were inseparable. We got married a year after we met, having a lavish ceremony at a country club. I was on cloud nine watching my beautiful bride walk down the aisle in a snow-white dress. It seemed that a long and happy family life was ahead of us. However, I didn't take into account one important factor: my mother-in-law, Karen. From the very beginning of our relationship, Karen treated me with suspicion and hostility. A tall, stately woman with piercing blue eyes, she seemed to see right through me. Karen constantly criticized me behind my back and openly expressed her displeasure with our marriage. "He's just a freeloader who wants to live off you, daughter," she would tell Jennifer. "He only wants access to your body, not a serious relationship." These words hurt me deeply because I sincerely loved Jennifer and wanted to build a strong family with her. I decided it was time to act and try to break the ice in my relationship with Karen. After all, she was my wife's mother, and I didn't want our strained relationship to cloud our family happiness. I started inviting Karen to join Jennifer and me on our walks and outings, hoping it would help us get to know each other better. Gradually, we began spending more time together, Jennifer, Karen, and I. We visited art exhibitions, attended classical music concerts, and walked in scenic parks. I tried to be polite and courteous to show Karen that I was a worthy husband for her daughter. But the more time we spent together, the more I noticed how different Karen was from Jennifer. My wife was sweet and kind, but intellectually she couldn't compare to her mother. Karen was a well-read, erudite woman with an amazing sense of humor. She spoke several languages fluently, had a good knowledge of art and literature, and was passionate about philosophy. Our conversations became more and more fascinating, and I found myself thinking that I enjoyed talking to my mother-in-law more than I did with my wife. What an irony of fate! These thoughts scared me. I loved Jennifer and didn't want to betray our relationship, even in my thoughts. But the attraction to Karen was getting stronger. When we talked, time flew by unnoticed. I admired her sharp mind, refined taste, and impeccable manners. Next to Karen, my wife began to seem simple and uninteresting. "Well, Johnny boy, looks like you've gotten yourself into trouble," I thought sarcastically, trying to push away the unwanted fantasies. To impress Karen even more, I decided to invite her and Jennifer to a new trendy restaurant. My wife was delighted, anticipating a delicious dinner and pleasant company. But my mother-in-law just snorted skeptically. "Let's see if this restaurant lives up to its rave reviews," she said with a smirk. Challenge accepted. I was determined to arrange an unforgettable evening and win the heart of this unapproachable woman. But on the day of our outing, something unexpected happened. Jennifer was called in for an emergency surgery at the hospital where she worked as a surgeon. A patient with a severe injury was admitted to their department, and my wife's presence was necessary. "You two go without me. Have fun!" Jennifer winked at us as she left, kissing me on the cheek and rushing off to save a life. Karen and I exchanged glances. A strange expression flashed in her eyes. Was it anticipation or apprehension? But there was nothing to be done, and we went to the restaurant together. What could possibly go wrong? The atmosphere in the restaurant was truly luxurious, an exquisite interior, dim lighting, soft music playing in the background. The waiters glided silently between the tables like shadows. We ordered the most interesting dishes and the finest wine from the menu. The conversation flowed smoothly from art to politics, from literature to memories of the past. It turned out that in her youth, Karen had studied French literature at the Sorbonne and lived in Paris for several years. She told amusing stories about her adventures, and I couldn't help but smile in admiration. My God, this woman captivated me with her charm and wit. The wine and warm conversation were doing their job. With each glass we grew closer, and not just spiritually. Our hands would touch as we reached for the cutlery. Our eyes met and lingered longer than they should have. At one point, Karen casually placed her hand on my knee and smiled mischievously. This touch sent a shiver through my body, my heart pounding wildly, and a crazy thought flashed through my mind. What if— We stayed until the restaurant closed and, slightly swaying from the wine, stepped out into the street. The night air pleasantly refreshed our flushed faces. I offered to walk Karen home, for a gentleman could not do otherwise. "What a cavalier," she purred, taking my arm. On the way, we joked, laughed, and fooled around like old friends. Or maybe even more than just friends. I could feel the attraction and desire growing between us. We paused for a moment outside Karen's house, reluctant to part. The tension was almost crackling in the air. "Would you like to come in and chat some more?" she suddenly asked in a low, husky voice. There were playful sparks dancing in her eyes. Common sense was screaming desperately, "Run, you fool! This won't end well!" But I, as if hypnotized, had already crossed the threshold. The door closed behind me with a soft click, cutting off the path of retreat. Once inside, we seemed to lose control of ourselves. Clothes flew in all directions, revealing bodies burning with passion. Karen pressed against me, and I felt the heat of her skin through the thin fabric of her underwear. The kisses became more and more greedy and frank. Hands explored every inch of the submissive body. The air was electrified with desire. We made love passionately and selflessly, as if it were the last time. It was a night full of fire and madness, a night I would never forget. In the morning, waking up in Karen's arms, I felt an excruciating shame. What have I done? How could I betray my beloved wife by getting involved with her mother? But looking at Karen's serene face as she slept, I realized that I had fallen in love with her. Passionately and recklessly. This woman had become a breath of fresh air for me, a life-giving oasis in the desert of my life. With her, I felt alive and desired. She awakened passion and tenderness in me. We began to meet secretly, stealing moments alone, kissing stealthily, making love, having endless heart-to-heart conversations. With Karen, I could talk about anything in the world, from high art to mundane everyday problems. She amazingly combined refined femininity and sharp intelligence, passion and prudence. I was torn between a sharp sense of guilt and an all-consuming, crazy happiness. Jennifer didn't notice anything, absorbed in work and household chores. I lied to her about being held up at work, inventing more and more excuses for my absences. "I wonder if there's a separate cauldron in hell for cheating husbands," I thought gloomily, looking at my reflection in the mirror. Deceiving my wife was becoming more and more difficult, but I couldn't give up Karen either. But as we know, you can't hide a needle in a sack. One far from perfect day, Jennifer accidentally discovered in my phone a correspondence with Karen, full of passion and unambiguous hints. A grand scandal broke out, turning into a real hysteria. "How could you, John?" my wife sobbed, throwing pillows and vases at me. "I trusted you, and with whom? With my own mother." I ran out the door, accompanied by Jennifer's curses and Karen's look of utter contempt. My cozy little world had collapsed, shattering into small, razor-sharp fragments. I was left with nothing, having lost both women I loved. Jennifer filed for divorce and forbade me to even come close to her and our once shared home. And Karen? Karen simply disappeared. Apparently, she decided to start a new life somewhere far away from the scandal and shame. Sitting on my suitcases outside a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, I smiled bitterly, remembering how it all began. "Well, homegrown Casanova, have you had enough? So much for improving relations with your mother-in-law." It turned out just like in the joke. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Well, I'll learn from my mistakes and draw lessons from what happened. From now on, if I decide to impress a potential mother-in-law, I'll limit myself to a bouquet of flowers and a couple of compliments at a family dinner. Fewer temptations, stronger nerves, and a clearer conscience. It's not for nothing they say, there's no fool like an old fool. Especially if the mother-in-law is a femme fatale, capable of sweeping you off your feet with a single glance. That's life, brother. That's life. Did you like this story? Let us know in the comments what you liked. Subscribe to our storytelling podcast. Also, don't forget to like and ring the bell so you don't miss more interesting stories. See you soon.